Good morning and welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review. I am DM Bluddworth, and as you can see by the graphics, today's video is a return to James Bond 007 RPG from 1983 Victory Games. And it's a response video to Shoner over at Shoner Films, or sometimes he labels his channel as Roll for Sanity. And I really do focus on a lot of his insight, and he actually took the last video and brought up some things. He was kind of upset that I skipped over role playing, so and what this game had to say about role playing. So I'm responding to that by focusing on role playing. Plus, I did a few little tweaks because he was expressing I believe, a concern that that the role system, the dice system is, it's a bit complicated or counterintuitive. It would break immersion. And so when I started taking a look at it, and I've argued this throughout, a lot of times with these older games, what they really could use is is modifications to their layout that makes things seem a little bit, it just makes it run smoother, and it's a lot easier to follow what it's supposed to do. So I think that everything that a game system really should try to accomplish is to provide the players with utilitarian tools that will make that whole process run smoother, plus at the same time encourage role playing. So, I sat down and I spent the better part of, a few hours yesterday and then again this morning trying to tweak a few things. And so I'm going to deal with that first and then go in and talk about role playing in this game and how it might differ from role playing in other games. So without further ado, let's go to full screen. So one of the things that he brought up was that there's too much cross-referencing between, you're rolling your D100 to see if you were successful, then you have to look at the quality of your success, and so on. And he's absolutely right. And on the official character record sheet, all that it gives you, and I'll grab one here to just show you, all that it gives the player right in front of them is a multiplication table. And all of that space dedicated to that, and yet the success quality table isn't on the player sheet. So I said one of the things that I would want to do is hand the players the success quality table so that they have that as well. And then I started looking around. Now, several people pointed out to me that there is an updated version of this game called Classified, and I found it's essentially the same exact game. They just relabeled a few things. So they call it, instead of an ease factor for the multiplication table, they call it a difficulty factor, which is, I guess the same thing. It's just a different word to apply to the same thing. But I think they still fell short in that page. And let me show you what I did. So this top portion is what Classified provides. So it has the difficulty factor and the success quality table right next to each other. So one roll determines not only whether you were successful or not here, but then you come over here and you see how successful you were. So you're only rolling the die once, the two die, the D100 once, and then you're cross-referencing. What I felt the handout also needed was, in most cases, when players are doing this thing and players are using this, you had an added step of, well, what is the damage done? And so I pulled from the original rulebook, not from Classified, I pulled the wound level chart. So now you're rolling here, you're checking the quality here, you're seeing how much damage you did here, okay? And it's all right there in front of the player. Every single player gets this. Then it has the area weapon damage chart that I put on there. Material adjustments to damage class. So, an iron, an iron shooting through an iron door would reduce the damage done by 1 level, through a steel door by 2 levels. Wood does not provide any additional protection. And then there's a wound accumulation chart. So once you know someone has been wounded, if they get hit a second time, then you can check to see the wound accumulation for having received 2 successive wounds. They compound, obviously. And now the players would have this. I would hand every single player this. That way, when they roll their D100, it's like bang, bang, and then see what what the actual end result is. And they can describe it. And that's one of the role-playing aspects here that, that I didn't make clear in that first video, was that you don't have hit points in this game system. And that actually lends itself to role-playing. Because now you're not describing, oh, you took 27 points of damage. What you're saying is that you received a light wound, or you received a medium wound, or a heavy wound, or your character received an incapacitating wound. That's all that they really need to know, is, at what level their wound level is. And you're using words, you're not using numbers to describe it. And you can go into further depth with your description from there, but I think that in itself lends to more role-playing. So once I've come up with this, now I have that redundancy here in having a multiplication table on this. If every player is getting, one of these, and the back is blank, so I would just double this up, and now they would be getting this. All right. However, you have the redundancy here. So what would I do with that space? Well, this is what I've done with that space. All right. I've created a template to put an image that you would use for your character, and it was very easy. I went in onto the internet, and I did a Google search for MI6 agents, black and white. All right, so it gave me agents of like the 1930s. I believe this gentleman's his last name was Elliot. I forget his first name. And he was an MI6 agent. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to use that as a template. And then I added in his date of birth, his birthplace, his education, his service record, his contacts. So a whole list of contacts that he could have there. And then down at the bottom, his personality traits. So the player would just be attaching personality traits. The game system doesn't have that, but this is a good reminder for the player to say, oh, well, he's very methodical. He's very driven. And just have those little cues there for them to, so as they're playing, as they're looking at their character sheet, then they can ask, well, what would my character do in this situation? And then, maybe one of those personality traits will click back to them and remind them, like, oh, this is a personality trait that my character has. I'm going to keep that continuity going. So now I know, kind of a reminder. Plus others can see that as well. So other players at the table or the game master can see, well, this is the personality traits that he's looking or she's looking to play their character as. And so I can kind of build around that as well, and see where where their personality might take them in this particular situation. At least try to foresee that. And then goals. So just a listed number of goals so that you kind of know why, what your character is looking to go towards. Motivation could be tied into there as well. So overall, what I'm talking about here is that the character sheet now will encourage role playing, over just the redundant multiplication table that's on the character sheet. So let's make that segue now into role playing and talk about how this game system handles role playing. So here we have in the introduction, and I'm going to start right from here, read word for word. The desire to make believe, to pretend, begins in each of us at an early age. In childhood, make-believe games with parents are very simple and are often drawn from fairy tales. A father pretending to be a wicked wolf in pursuit of three little pigs. These games of pretend become more complicated and formalized as children grow and begin to interact with other children of the same age. Such games of make-believe, sorry about the garage sound, such games of make-believe let us learn and experience what it is like to be other people or things, at the least as we imagine them to be. There are no rules in these childhood games. Instead, everyone agrees to play within a certain made-up universe which works the same way for everyone involved in the game. That's called the social contract. All right. If someone refuses to play accordingly, for example, refusing to fall down and play dead after being shot, the game breaks down as the players become upset and angry. Such a world of make-believe works only as long as all who are involved in the game agree to what the rules are. All right. So again, that is the social contract at its most basic form. Role-playing in the world of James Bond. There is still the desire in all of us to make believe, often expressing itself in the form of daydreams, such as being James Bond. Since you have picked up this book, you are most likely wondering what role-playing in the world of James Bond is all about. It is just another world of make-believe, except the rules are all included in this book. The world that you will play in is the exciting world created by Ian Fleming for his fictional secret agent James Bond. If you have ever seen any of the movies or read the novels, you know what kind of world this is. Certainly close to our own world, but a bit more fantastical. The men are always handsome, the women are always beautiful, and the villains always evil. It is a world of luxurious cars and breathtaking locations in which the good guys always win, or at least break even. If you have ever wanted to be James Bond, then this game is for you. The James Bond 007 game allows you to be James Bond, one of his allies from the movie series, Felix Leiter, Anya Amasova, Tiger Tanaka, among others, or even a secret agent of your own creation. You will be able to fight the battles against the evil forces of the world, which strive to subjugate the free peoples. All you need to play are these rules, a table to sit at, and some pencils, paper, dice, and markers. The locations, people, and incidents will be visualized in your mind. The game can be played by as few as 2 people and as many as 5. The action will be described verbally with some help from props by the game master, and the plots will be resolved by the quick thinking of players, the abilities of secret agents they are pretending to be, and some luck, which is represented by the use of dice. The James Bond 007 game is much like an improvisational theater piece in which the actors, who in real life are probably nothing like the characters they portray, and have created their characters out of their heads, and the director has written the script, but only as loose outline of what is to happen. The director knows the storyline and tells the actors bits and pieces of it, allowing them to react to situations he presents as their characters would. That's the role-playing aspect, right? As their characters would, so in the heads of their characters. The director creates the script as an outline for the actors' actions. The actors play only the major parts of the heroes, while all the villains and minor parts are played by the director. An improvisational piece is flexible, for it allows the actors, through the choices they make, to alter the plot lines of the script. Only when the whole script has been acted out will the actors and director know how things come out in the end. A stage play, however, is much more formally structured than a role-playing game. All right, so again, there's a framework. The director is presenting that framework, but then what the players choose to do through their characters' actions could change the direction of the entire framework. They can break out of the framework. They can go forward, and as they describe in this last piece here, uh, this is it's not until the session is over that the game master and the players can now look back and they can see how the story played out. All right, so there isn't a story they're leading into. There's a story when it's all done. All right, and that's true role playing. That's what it's meant to be. All right, it's not meant to be so structured like a screenplay, formally structured where the outcome is already known and you're kind of guiding them to that desired outcome. In this game, the actors in the play are called player characters, the secret agents the players are pretending to be. The director is called the game master, usually abbreviated as GM. The players will act out their parts of the heroes, and the GM will handle all the villains and minor characters, non-player characters or NPCs. The GM creates the script, presents the situation to the players, portrays all secondary characters, and acts as the final arbiter of the rules of the game. That is it. The rules all have been agreed to play by. All have agreed to play by. So, a word to the fans of James Bond. We have tried to be faithful as possible to the content and spirit of both the Bond movies and novels. Where there has been conflict, the movies have been preference. Due to certain contractual agreements, mention of certain organizations and characters from the movies was prohibited. We have done our best to invent replacements to fill in the void. Okay, so there's some points. So a note to experienced role players. The James Bond 007 game is not like most role-playing games available today. Those games are designed to make the GM all-powerful and give the NPCs a much greater advantage over the player characters. Games set in a fantasy environment allow the GM to make NPCs incredibly powerful, either through armies or magical artifacts. Science fiction role-playing games place the characters in a universe so large that they have little influence on the overall course of events. They become cogs in the machine while the GM and NPCs have more influence. This game, however, is designed in favor of the players. After all, what good is being James Bond if the game says you will fail rather than succeed? There is no guarantee every mission will be successful for the players. Much depends on their own abilities to play well. While the GM will be required to give players every advantage, he cannot change the roll of the dice or hold up neon signs to show the players the next correct move to make. This is certainly not a game where the player characters can be relegated to the role of spectators. As agents of MI6, the British Secret Service, they should never take a backseat to any NPC or act as a mere caddy or messenger. This is a double-edged sword because even though the players are given every advantage, the final responsibility for success or failure is theirs. Only through proper application of the character's skills will they find out what they must do to accomplish their missions and then go out to do it. With few exceptions, no matter what their assignment, given the genre, the players can be sure that there is something more to it than is given in their initial briefing. It will sometimes become necessary for the players to make decisions about their characters' actions independent of the original orders, especially when they come upon new information. As outlined in Chapter 12, the players should be discouraged from running back to M or the headquarters for instructions. In this game, players will have to develop confidence in their own decision making, enough confidence in particular to act contrary to orders if they feel it is necessary. A bold style of play has proven most effective in the world of James Bond. So, that bold style of play is telling the players you have to think about what your character wants to do. You have to think through the situation that you're in and try to develop an action to achieve that goal. And it's all on you. It's all on your ability to think about your character. What would your character do in this situation? And then be bold about it. Say, this is what my character is doing. So very much like Shoner keeps on pointing out, never ask questions. Well, that's asking a question of the GM. Can my player character do this? All right. Instead of doing that, just say, this is what my character is doing. All right. And that way, the GM can now tell the player what they need to roll or what skill they need to roll on in order to do that. The player rolls, and then the player describes the outcome. All right, whether they succeeded or failed. If they succeeded, what was the quality of their success? And then if it was like a combat situation, how much, what kind of wound they dealt out. All right, and keeping it very verbal like this without the use of numbers is just that one basic step towards role playing. Then it's the other thing which I mentioned, when I talked about developing this character sheet, is you want to keep your character concept, in your mind at all times while you're playing. You want to keep on asking yourself, what would my character do in this situation? Not just what will I as a player do in this situation? And, try to, I'm not talking about talking in voices and using character speech in that way, but try to put it in the context of this is what my character's doing, and start saying, this is what Elliot is doing. Elliot is going to go up to the door and he is going to listen at the door to see if he hears anything on the other side. All right, rather than my character is going to go to the door and he's going to make a hear sounds check, and he's going to roll this, or can I, even worse, can I go and check to see if there's any sound coming from that door? Why would you ask that question? All right, just go up there and do it. All right, so role playing sometimes, it takes a little bit more effort than what the rule systems actually imply. All right, this is a game written in 1983. It does not have all of the benefits that we have today of what makes, really great role playing. It's only coming out 9 years after the initial, marketing of the first tabletop role playing game, and so they do a lot for what role playing will look like in James Bond as a setting, but there's still some improvement to go in that description. Again, 1983, versus today and what we know. And like I pointed out, I mean, there are still something, classified was and I didn't check to see when it was actually produced, but clearly it was produced more recently, within the last 10 years, let's say, and it still missed making some of these tweaks that we know today about making making handouts and character sheets a lot more character useful or player useful, and also to support more role playing rather than simple dice rolling. And so, you know, that's why if I were to run this game here, I would use various tweaks and things that I've learned over the years to apply it. Plus, like I said, listening to other individuals like Shoner, who has a very interesting perspective on what role playing should look like. And I don't agree with 100% of what he says, but there's a lot that that he does talk about that I think will lend itself to creating a much more immersive table than and that goes across any kind of game. I'm sure that he wasn't thinking about James Bond 007 1983, Victory Games, RPG when he was talking about what role playing looks like. Not until he saw my video and responded to it. So once again, when you get these games, take a look at them. Feel free to tweak them. I literally spent, probably about 2 or 3 hours just thinking about and then producing various, items to help facilitate not only smoother gameplay, but role playing as well. And that's something that you should do with any game that you pick up. If you see something in there that's like, you know what, I think it could work better, change it. That's what you should do. And always look at games in the sense of, how can I make the role playing experience much more immersive? So I hope you enjoyed this video, Shoner. I hope you I hope you like this, and if you have any other comments to make them, make them in here and say, hey, this is something else that you should look at, and always welcome comments and response videos and such is really great to see. So as always, thanks for joining. I hope you liked this video. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it. If you have any questions or comments, do that. Leave those in there. As you can see, I respond to response videos or questions or anything like that. And subscribe if you haven't subscribed. I know a good portion of my visitors, there's a lot of visitors that come in. They come in sometimes multiple times, and yet they haven't subscribed and hit that alert button. So, if you're coming in, you like the content, one thing about my channel is that you're going to see a greater mix of content than probably most other tabletop role-playing game channels. So if you want to see a lot of different things, then subscribe, get those alerts, and you'll see more and more as I continue forward producing videos for this channel. So again, thanks for joining. Have a great day. Be safe out there. It's a day after Halloween, so hopefully you enjoyed your Halloween, and I look forward to seeing you on the gaming screen sometime soon. I got my 2 games coming up this morning at 11:30 on my Castles and Crusades, and then later on this evening at 8:30 p.m. I have my my AD&D First Edition campaign rolling out, and we'll see if I add anything new in the upcoming weeks as well. Maybe I'll do a little play test here with James Bond in a couple of weeks. So again, good to see you all. Take care.